welcome to FinTalk. Today, we're talking about Hub71 and its blueprint for startup success. Today, our guest is the lead of the finance function, Bilal Javaid. Hi Bilal, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
Great having you here. Great having you here. I really appreciate you making the time because you are the person that will be able to tell us all the helpful tips and tricks when it comes to Hub71 and essentially how they help so many startups become successes or success stories, should I say. Let's start with your background, right? So who were you? What inspired your finance journey and how did you find yourself in Hub71?
My journey at Hub71 started with my finance career because initially I always had a passion for problem solving. At the first hand, I saw like financial strategies and financial management is very core to businesses. Okay, I got an interest into chartered accountancy. From there, I gained experience across industries like telecommunication, healthcare, technology. And moving forward, I got an opportunity to work at Hub71. That was a game changer in my career because that let me bring my passion of problem solving, especially to the businesses, to help them scale and succeed, and bringing my financial expertise to help them across.
When you say chartered accountancy, which qualification did you go for?
I went for ACCA.
ACCA.
Yeah.
I went with SEMA.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, SEMA. So you mentioned that you've got an incredible passion for problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what excites you the most about working with SMEs?
Yes, exactly. Because problem solving helps you to think out of box. Okay, I'm really interested when I work with these startups and building financial strategies, operational efficiencies for them. So looking into the numbers and driving what the problem and translating it into the numbers, which really excites me.
So you don't just lead the finance function for Hub71, you're also actively involved in supporting the finances for some of the SMEs and startups?
Not particularly working directly with these startups, but as Hub71 has its own mentorship programs, and that's give me chance and opportunity to work with personally or work with some of the founders, help them understand what they lack and where do they require support, and helping them across is where my roles comes in.
Amazing.
Yes.
As you know, we've been in your offices quite often now.
Yeah.
And we've had opportunities to work with yourself and speak to a lot of the startups in the building. You have this really, really lovely way of working, which is just you have an open office. It feels like every door you can knock on and ask a question as well. Is that one of the main things that Hub71 is really behind, which is that ability to provide that level of support to anyone that walks in?
Yes, you can look into it like the way our office is as structured at Al Khatim Tower. All of our office, especially Hub71 office, is an open space office, which provide you kind sense of less bureaucracy.
Yes.
Okay, it helps you to have a free flow of conversation. We have open door policy. Okay, and that's where Hub71 comes into play.
Hub71 is essentially the biggest incubator in the UAE.
Mm-hmm.
How exactly does it support the UAE's vision of becoming a global tech ambassador and essentially the hub for the region?
You can say Hub71 is at the forefront of UAE vision for broader innovation, bringing the innovation and fostering the economic diversification through technologies. Hub71 is currently incubating 300 plus startups.
No way.
Yes. So we have incubated 300 plus startups, attracting all of them, providing them as a soft launch pad to come here and grow. We just don't provide them funding. We provide them tailored mentorship programs We provide them access to capital through networking with VCs and family offices and connecting them to the sovereign funds. And to our corporate partnerships. That's also a key role which Hub71 plays in the success stories of these startups.
Let's pick up on the successful startups. So out of 300, majority are going to do incredibly well because of the platform that Hub71 provides. What are the trends that you've seen across these successful startups, and how has Hub71 supported them?
For the success of startup, I believe like the key elements are, and a startup should be adaptability, their financial governance, innovation. Well, I'll give you one example: carbon exchange. Hub71 is startup. They capitalize on the carbon market. They bring the traditional commodity infrastructure into this space. By doing this innovation and moving ahead in the market initially as a pioneer, they were able to get regulated by ADGM as a first regulated market space for carbon credits.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about pain points as well. We've spoken about some of the trends and some of the key things that have worked well for these startups. What are the main pain points that startups go through that enforce change?
Actually, what I have seen, finding the right product market fit is one very key element. Some of the startups initially struggle to getting the product market fit. Second, poor financial governance, because initially when the startups start, they mainly focus on
revenue at all costs.
revenue customers and to the tech development. Okay, but they forget like the good financial governance, forecast, projections, how much it's really important. And then if the financial governance is not appropriate, then they lose the investor trust. So I've seen these are the two main elements: is finding the right market fit and poor financial governance.
Let's talk about financial governance, because that's a recurring topic across quite a few episodes that we've had, actually.
Mm-hmm.
What do startups, or where do startups mess up when it comes to financial governance? Is it a case where they don't know where to start, or they do know where to start, but they don't know how to do it?
What I have seen with these startups, the basic problem is finance function is treated as a back office support. Okay, the founders consider finance as a way to just manage their cash flow, which is more than that. Finance function is not just about processing the payments or managing your bank account. It's more than that. It's provide you strategic vision and helps founder to sustain a self-sustainable model, or let's call it self-sustainable business model for them, which will help them to ensure sustainability and to have the continuous growth.
How does Hub71 help with implementing the right governance practice when it comes to financial stability?
Through our mentorship programs, we have an accelerator program through our partner called Techstar, where the startups get all these kinds of mentorship in which this can be implemented. Also, we provide them in-kind incentives through our service provider or through our service partners, where we have the top tier firms which can help them into the financial management, auditing, and advisory services.
As a startup, a Hub71 startup, if they want to be able to improve their finance function and look at it more as a strategic function as opposed to a back office function to just process payments and manage cash flow, what should they do? Do they reach out to your mentorship program and they're aligned with the appropriate mentor? Do they use their points to speak with the right partner? What would be the different channels?
Actually, Hub71 access program is mandatory for all the cohorts. All the startups which gets onboarded are enrolled to this access program, where they get the understanding and the importance of the pure financial management and financial strategies. And then also we have all the top tier firm and the medium tier firms in our service portal, where startups can go and get the access and gain the services from them. But it's a very good point you have highlighted. Right now, there should be more than that to make the founders and to be aware what's the importance of the financial governance and the financial management, where I think Finlytics can help us educate the founders. Personally, I believe it's not just about the mentorship program. It's not just about getting the services from the right partners. It's about the mindset. The founders' mindsets needs to be changed, and they need to develop an understanding how important is the financial management for them.
Can you share a example of a startup that's done incredibly well with Hub71 support?
See, startups is all about possibilities, and these are driven by the founders who take big risk and trying to solve meaningful problems. At Hub71, I'll tell you one of our startup, a fintech, Abhi, which is a financial wellness technology, is recently being acknowledged at World Economic Forum as a pioneer technology.
Okay. Amazing.
And they have raised a couple of millions. And this is not just locally recognized, it's globally. So what I learned from the founder of Abhi is he was specifically engaged with developing the partnership across. He was purely active on his financial governance, how he manages startup funding, investor relationship. So this is one of many success stories.
It's interesting. In one of our latest episodes, we specifically spoke about sustainability of the business by implementing the right functional finance processes. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to focusing just on your runway, focusing on your lift, yes. Which there's no point in you focusing on your runway only if you have no lift. The investors won't invest.
Yes.
There's not enough funds in the world to invest in startups that will not take lift off, right? Now, for this example, Abby, is it a case where, or is it safe to say they had the right knowledge, the right tools, the right support around them, so they use finance as a strategic element as opposed to just a back office function?
Let's take a step back. And it's not just about Abhi. You take any of the successful startup, you will find on its core the proper financial management, the governance structure. And we need to think what makes a business investable, what makes it investable by the VCs, what brings the trust of the investor. Yeah, one part is the disruptive technology, the product market fit. But having all these innovations and the product market fit, what ends up is what drives the operational efficiencies and financial strategy. So having a proper governance function will help them succeed and scale. And we can talk about it, like, what do you mean by financial strategy? Okay. So financial strategy is not just managing your finances. It's about aligning the company's mission, KPIs, to the financial numbers. Okay, aligning the vision of the company with what the finance should look like.
It's interesting that you mentioned this. It's directly aligned with what we do on a monthly basis with all of our clients.
Okay.
At the end of each month, a startup, SME, mid-size, from every business should be aware of their financial performance for the previous period. Mm-hmm. As part of that, we implement the what works well methodology, what didn't work so well, and the even better ifs, which then allows us to build an action plan of what do we as a business need to do to ensure that we're more profitable or achieve our targets. So that alignment that you mentioned in terms of aligning the business goals, objectives, KPIs, ways of working to focus on the North Star for the business is imperative for their success. And clearly Hub71 is doing something right in that space.
Yeah. So that's what we try to help our startups. And I want to, going forward, we want to double down on this area and help our startups to understand and educate them to understand the importance of the financial management.
Question for you. Is this approach industry agnostic?
No, it's not. It's open.
So a startup, whatever industry they're in, whatever phase they're in, finance should always be looked at as more than just a payment processing tool.
Exactly. It should be looking into the strategic level as a business partner and as a core of the business, which ensures the business sustainability.
So sustainability or sustainable growth is often driven by having the right finance governance in place.
Yeah. And finance is numbers. Okay. But what's the story behind those numbers? If we are able to translate those stories behind the numbers, that will help the decision makers make the right decisions, tap into the right revenue streams, go into the correct cost cutting, take the correct cost cutting measures. Okay. And this also help us to think in many ways where we can have a diversified revenue streams, which was earlier ignored, because these numbers tells us what's the trend. And it's not just you need to analyze your own business numbers or own financial numbers. It's about looking into your peers, looking into the financials of your competitors, how the industry is going well. So all of this, not just the numbers, translating those numbers into the insights can help the decision makers to make the right decisions.
When it comes to storytelling, a lot of people are amazing at storytelling, but they don't understand the story behind their numbers, just like you mentioned. Having the right data in the right place significantly boosts a business's credibility, which of course then leads to an improved visibility of what to do, what not to do, what to avoid, and an alignment of the main stakeholders. Are we going in the right direction? Are we making the right decisions? If a business has poor quality of financial data, or it's just incredibly late in terms of closing the books or having visibility, businesses will struggle, because making a decision today about data that you've only got access to a few days ago, but that data is actually from 2 months prior, you are making a decision for tomorrow that is based on data from months ago. So your decision, by the time you've made it, is actually an expired decision. Outside of Hub71, that happens often. What would you say are the main issues with having poor governance in place, poor financial processes for these startups?
A couple of things are there. One is the leadership. Okay. The leadership needs to understand the importance of hiring the right professionals, having the right systems in place, which ensures meeting the timelines, meeting the right structure. And then before making any decision making, is that decision backed by the latest numbers? Okay, which is very important, because normally you will find businesses making decisions on a data which is 3 months or 2 months old, which won't help. If you look into the F&B sector, there are there are seasonal businesses. Sometimes businesses are performing, like let's say the last quarter of the year and the first quarter of the year in UAE for F&B sector is really good. It's a high revenue season for them. And then on basis of that, if you try to make decision for the Q2 and Q3, that would be a enormous mistake, because the data is old, the season has changed, you don't have the proper insights. It won't be working in the same growth rate, to mention it.
Absolutely. It's I'm thinking of the UAE summer, for example, where for a lot of businesses it's a quieter period because not as much footfall and so forth. And comparing your performance of the month of September against August or October versus August doesn't make sense. But more often than not, businesses don't have access to the data on time.
Yes.
Some of the things that we've seen, speaking of F&B, some of our clients are restaurant groups, and we always make this comparison in terms of what was your performance for this month against last month, just as an FYI, but then more importantly, this time last year, and then being able to look at what was your revenue, what was your gross profit, what are the different KPIs that you had for this period versus the two periods that we're comparing against, what were the main differences, what were the expenditure, or what was the expenditure that you had, and then being able to identify you spent 20% more on salaries for this period as opposed to the previous before. But why was that the case when your revenue was the same?
Yeah.
Right? Is it a macro issue? Is it a micro issue? And then being able to help with the even better ifs, what to do next. So having the right data at the right time and knowing what the story is behind that data is crucial for success.
Yes.
Right?
I would like to add on this, talking about how data is important and how finance function specifically is important. There is one restaurant which is going through the change of its concept and starting its renovation during the month of March or during the month of February, which is the high season period. They could have delayed this during the summertime. But because no one aligned with their data, no one advised on it, they made the decision. So that's the importance of the financial number. If someone would have told them what's the seasonal variation based on the past experience, based on the past year financial, they would have selected the right time for the renovation or for changing the concept. So that's how the financial data is important for the decision makers.
When it comes to a business owner looking into its finance performance, most businesses look at it from a high level. The group did this, or the business did X amount, but they don't necessarily look into the different revenue streams or the different business units within the company itself. So as an example, you could have business A, and then as part of business A or startup A, you have 3 or 4 different business units. Majority wouldn't be able to pull a P&L across the individual business units that then sums into the overall business P&L. Is that lack of tools, capability, or just not knowing who to reach out to support you with that specific visibility and growth?
I think there are 2 things. One is lack of tool. Second, lack of understanding of right financial management. Because the right financial management will break it down, all the revenue streams, not in just the category wise, but the unit wise, but the business segment wise, which I have personally seen it's happening. It happens. They just have one consolidated revenue numbers, but from where this revenue is coming from, they have no clues. And they continue, because of that, they continue running with the loss-making units or segments. And not even just one thing. Once I met one of the startup, their revenue was skyrocketing. They were celebrating about that success, but they forgot if the revenue has increased 50%, their cost has also increased by 70%.
Mm.
So rather than investigating into why the cost has increased 70%, which is not at the same rate of revenue, they were celebrating. So that's where the key insights, the data insights, and the right directions on the financial management comes in place.
But being able to have someone who's always going to be on top of your finances, traditionally, it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
What we have found, and one of the main things we've implemented, is a cost-centric approach to finance optimization, which is, yes, you should be able to have access to the same level of services and visibility as you'd receive if you had a full-time CFO. But you don't. And getting one, especially for the startups, it's expensive and probably unnecessary, which is where the finance as a service model has come in and has really helped out with getting that level of visibility at the cost of one employee, right? And that's something that we've really seen help out a lot of the startups that we've worked with and the SMEs. Now, we've spoken a lot about what works well and hasn't worked well for some of the startups that you've seen in Hub71 and also outside of Hub71. Are there any specific lessons that you've learned that you've put in place, not just for yourself, but as you do your mentorship for different startups? Is there some go-to gems that you always share?
Number one thing is always aligning the company's vision with the finances. Okay, because normally finance comes into the last place with these startups or with these SMEs. First of all, they are just focusing on bringing the sales up. Okay, but analyzing these sales, analyzing the business trend is a key. So for me, I will always advise to have a monthly management report, which analyzes the key financial areas, okay, in terms of sales, in terms of cost, which is further broken down into several components, and then having a budget, okay, having proper budgeting and forecasting exercise each year, analyzing it every month with the proper variance analysis, having separate metrics to be tracked depending on the business and industry. This will really help. And fourth, but not the last, is the having the right tools, which can make the automation and reporting to the decision makers more efficient and more accurate.
Love the answer, and it's directly aligned with a lot of the ways that we operate. So maybe I'm a little bit biased with the answer, but it's based on best practices.
Yes.
And at Finalytics, we have the strong opinion that everyone should be able to have access to best possible practices at the most efficient cost and ways of working. You've mentioned quite a few things that are directly aligned with how we operate.
Yeah.
And essentially one of our main focuses, which is every single business should be able to operate in the most efficient possible way, as lean as possible, but still getting the maximum possible ROI. Especially when it comes to cost efficiency and being able to have the visibility that they need to have to be able to make the right decisions. What other finance practices have you seen that really helped startups? Would it be a case of, in addition to having tools and automation, having a cash flow session, having the recurring accounts payable put in place?
For me, the number one step is having the right ERP system, which is fit for the business in terms of their scale and size. Second is having the right team, which understands the financial numbers, having the right processes and structure in place. And then having the ownership of that finance function, which takes the ownership and leads it to the right business model, which we are driving in. I'll I'll take a step back and tell you, like, when we started Hub71, the first step as a Hub71 we did, which led to the right operational efficiency and aligning with the Hub71 strategic vision, was having our own ERP system. We implemented it, we migrated all the data, reconciled it. This was the first step. And then developing the financial processes like month end, risk management, compliance, streamlining the AP process, using the AI tools to automate most of the function. This really helped the startups and the businesses, and especially Hub71, to grow and have a strong financial stability.
Picking up on that, is there anything specifically that you tell a startup not to do?
Not to do? Just don't think finance is all about having a spreadsheet where you have all the numbers. It's more than that.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. When we say it's more than that, are we referring to finance is more than just a spreadsheet with a basic P&L? Are we referring to it's more than just a meeting at the end of the month saying, yep, we did X amount of profits? What do we mean by that?
When we call it, like, don't consider it as an Excel. Normally, these startups or SMEs in the market, things like having a spreadsheet which has all the income and expenses. That's all, and having a P&L with what amount of profit we generated. Finance function is more than that. Why? Because it helps you to analyze where the business is going forward. Okay, what are the trends business is facing? Okay, it's not just about the month, it's about the 5-year business plan. Okay, it will tell you what are the areas which is helping you grow and where do you need to focus. It will help you understand where are the major cost drivers. Okay, where you need to look into it. What are the returns on? Let's talk about the marketing. People spend on these startups spend on marketing. Okay, what return are we getting from each dollar or each term is spent on the marketing? Do we calculate that? Do we have those metrics? So these all areas are important, and all of this can only be achieved through having the right tools and system in place.
Let's break it down a little bit more. Of course, you've got your revenue streams, and in being able to understand what different sub-revenue streams you have.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of them is going to have a cost of sale. So being able to assign product one with the relevant cost of sale is going to give you gross profits on a per unit basis or per business unit. When it comes to the other parts of the business, which is operations, marketing, you've got your costs of just general admin and so forth.
Yeah.
Most businesses don't look at those in detail.
Yes.
Right? They'll look at the top line, maybe do a level 1 analysis and call it a day.
Yeah.
How can businesses improve their visibility on their marketing, cost of acquisition or whatever other KPIs they deem important for them?
I believe like looking into the details, okay, and allocating all these, let's call it HQ costs or general administrative expenses, allocating this cost to the appropriate business units, or you can say to the different revenue streams or the segments, okay, and driving what values these admin costs are adding towards it. Marketing, let's say if you're spending $100,000 on marketing on a monthly basis, what's the ROI you are getting out of it? So for each cost unit in the administrative side, assigning the specific metrics to track it will help the business to understand more on this.
If we use the marketing example, would it be a case where the finance team should align with the marketing team and break down what are the different processes and functions, the different costs that marketing has, and being able to identify what was the objective for this specific campaign, how much was spent for said campaign, what was the return that we got from it, which is an increase of 20% in sales, and then being able to have a conversation to understand what we said earlier, which was the story behind the numbers.
Yes, very good point. Spot on. And also, this also brings us to finance function working with all other function in parallel. It's not just finances working on silos. It needs to work with the marketing function, with the operations, with the executive management. Okay, understanding their KPIs, translating those KPIs into their operational plans, giving them the let's say proper finance support, and tracking all those metrics really will help them to understand and translate those numbers.
Being able to do this is the differentiator between a startup that does all right and a startup that has a clear vision, plan, and methodology in terms of how to deliver what they want to deliver. It goes back to my point of there's always a system and a process, always, right? And it goes deep to the point where finance, just like you said, cannot be a siloed function. It needs to be the strategic element that partners up with marketing, operations, revenue, the C-suite, and being able to also speak with the investors if necessary to define where we are, where we want to be, how we're getting there, and then essentially laying the path forward collaborative with the rest of the business.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to startups that want to be able to do all of these things that we've just mentioned, but don't necessarily know how to do it? Is it a case where they need to, for example, Hub71 startups, they need to speak to the mentors internally, they need to align with the relevant partner providers? Would that be the right or easiest way to do it?
There can be a couple of things. One is at Hub71, we have the mentorship program, aligning with the right partners, talking with the Hub71 team itself, and then getting involved with the community. Because as you know, we have 300 plus startup community, so they can speak with the other founders, understand the best practices, and looking into the tools which the other successful startups have taken in. And from there, they can just develop on that.
Usually, when a startup decides to make a big change in terms of how they approach finance, it's because something negative has happened, or they can see that something negative could happen in the future if they don't make certain changes. What kind of pain points usually drive that change of way of thinking?
The funding. Okay, there are two elements. One, they run out of the funding because the cash burn rate was high. Second is the investor trust, because the investors only invest in the investable business which are transparent and have the proper financial management, have the proper financial statements. Their reporting line is straightforward. Their reporting line are streamlined. So these all things add up for the founders to think more importantly about the financial management.
Would you say that if the finance foundations aren't in place, getting access to funding is more difficult?
If all the financial elements are in place, access to capital is more easier. It's more easier. It helps them to pitch to the right investors. Investor has more trust. Your financials are more transparent. And now, going forward, when you do your reporting, when you go to the lenders as well, okay, when you do the partnerships, if you have proper set of accounts, if you have proper set of financial statements which are being audited, you have the proper set of processes in place, this only just not help you in getting the funding and the investment. It helps you to grow yourself. It makes your organic growth more self-sustainable.
I really like the point of making your own growth more self-sustainable. What we see very often is startups that have a tremendous idea, not necessarily executing their finance foundations or putting them in place correctly, and then being incredibly reliant on funding, and then at some point running out of funding and then having to do multiple rounds even before they reach their Series A. Why is this the case?
Because of not having the right financial business plan, okay, not having the long-term vision of how the finances would look like, not having the proper budgeting exercises, okay, not having the right tools which identifies the exact variances where they're going wrong. And sometimes it gets too late when they look into the numbers. Do you have on a monthly basis the finance reporting? Is your books closing on time? Okay, so all these elements add up to this disaster.
Absolutely. And how can startups preempt this? How can they fix this before it becomes a real problem?
Number one thing, having the right system in place. Okay, having the right processes and system in place. Second is having the right tool. Third is to have the significance and understanding the significance of this financial management.
Would you say that would be the most important piece of advice you'd give to a startup?
Yes, definitely. That would be my first advice, to have the right system and process in place, having the right tools. And third, the leadership, having educating the leadership, or put it the right way, is to the leadership getting to know the significance of how important the financial management is.
So good. Such a good answer. How can startups make the most of Hub71?
Hub71 is Abu Dhabi's global tech ecosystem, which is fostering innovation and empowering startups, not just providing them the funding. It provides them tailored mentorship. It provides them access to the funding through the networks of VCs, family offices, sovereign funds, helping them connect with the corporates and the government. Okay, building up a community of founders, which helps each other, sharing the ideas where the world is going. And Hub71 is not just focused on the local market or the local region; it's a global. Our couple of our startups, or many of our startups, has gone global already. They have raised a lot of millions. I don't want to say this, but they have raised successfully through VCs. And another point, and additionally, an additional point I want to add: Hub71 is not a generic startup ecosystem. Okay, it also has some specific future related ecosystem. To add that, we have Hub71 Pluses for digital assets and climate tech, where we bring all the partners, all the partners in place, which fosters these specific Hub71 Pluses.
Bilal, this has been really helpful, and I've learned so much in terms of how Hub71 operates. Thinking of final thoughts, specifically for businesses that are looking to scale, anything that you could share on that?
I think founders needs to focus on two major things when they start and join Hub71: building on their scalable business model and focusing on developing their team. This will ensure their growth and scalability. And what we focused is financial governance. Stick with the financial governance from the start, not when you went into a disaster or when it's too late. So having a scalable business model, finding the right team, and having the right financial models.
Amazing. I would try and sum that up to prepare for success as opposed to trying to deal with failures.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Bilal, thank you so much. This has been great and really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.